Hello，大家好，欢迎来到逻辑玫瑰，我是你们的主持人小溪。在我们今天正式开始之前，我想问大家一个问题：你有没有遇到过这样的情况？明明向 AI 提了一个问题，但得到的回答要么太泛，要么根本没有说到点子上。其实啊，这背后可能藏着一个很多人都忽视的技能，叫做 prompt engineering，也就是提示词工程。这到底是什么？它和我们平时随手跟 AI 聊天有什么样的区别呢？今天我们非常荣幸地邀请到了来自南加利福尼亚大学的杨爱梅副教授。教授的研究方向涵盖了社交网络、社会运动等，同时他对 AI 的实际应用也有着非常深入的见解。不过在这里我要提前和大家说明一点，因为这一期我们聊的话题涉及到大量的专业名词和技术术语，比如 prompt engineering、context engineering、RAG 等等，这些概念用中文表达反而容易产生误解，所以教授在采访中选择用全英文来讲解，这样能确保信息的准确性和专业性。所以接下来的内容基本上是一期英文访谈，大家可以把这期节目当成一次沉浸式的英语学习体验，不用担心听不懂，教授的英语表达非常清晰，语速也很友好。相信听完这一期，你不仅对 prompt engineering 有全新的认识，说不定你的英语能力也提升了一波。那就废话不多说，我们就进入今天的采访。Hello, Professor Ai Mei. It's really nice to meet you today. Could you please briefly introduce yourself first?
My name is Aimee Yang. I'm an associate professor here at Edinburgh. My research focus on social network, social movement, social influence dynamics, and social issue management.
Thank you for the introduction. So many people they do not know the definition of the prompt engineering. Could you introduce it?
Prompt engineering is a primary way you can engage with large language model, because when the scientists were trying to build those large language model in the pre-training stage, they use lots of prompts to guide the model's behavior. In the post-training stage, they also use lots of prompts to guide the model's behavior. So in a way, it's a very natural way for the model to shape its behavior and to produce its outcome. When we as users to trying to work with the large language model, it's also a very natural way we can engage with those models and guide its behavior. So it's a fundamental approach through which you can interact with the model and guide the model to make different product and output. And prompt engineering can take the format of you can prompt engineer the output from a chat platform like ChatGPT. You can also prompt engineer through API. So there are many different ways you can apply prompt engineering into your interaction with large language model.
Thank you for sharing. So many people use AI daily but just treat it like chatting. What stage are most users at, and what's the gap to real prompt engineering?
Part of your question I can answer. What's the difference between just chatting with the chat GPT and how do we do prompt engineering? So prompt engineering is actually a more like a layered approach. There are many different strategies that you can use. And there are different ways you can incorporate different techniques. Like for example, you can incorporate tool use in your prompt engineering. And you incorporate examples in your prompt engineering, and you can do trivial augmented prompt engineering, right? So there's many different approach. For more like a lay user, I think it's more like a conversational engagement. So they are having a conversation with AI, and when AI gives them any kind of output, they may not be actively judging the quality of the output. They're taking the output at the face value. So part of the question is like, is there a big difference? Yes, there is a huge difference. That's why prompt engineering is more like a skill. But everyday interaction with AI is more like it doesn't require much of a learning. Anyone can open up a chat box and start chatting, right? So prompt engineering, something that requires a little bit more dedicated learning, understanding of the behavior of large language model, understanding the different kinds of techniques, understanding the different tools you can use to help you to get better results. So one is a skill, another is just natural human behavior.
Thank you. So, what do you think is the main reason a prompt fails?
Again, I don't really know what's the common cause for people's prompt engineering to fail, because I think that should be based on research, right? And also that's the kind of research only people who are behind the curtain of those large language model can do, like OpenAI or Claude. They have the background data, right? And they can see like what kind of prompting technique give you better results. Um, Personally, I think it's very common for people to ignore some basic elements of large language models' behavior. One element is that those pre-trained models, they are trained for general purpose. So all the response are based on the most likely st statistical probability. And that may or may not be a good fit to your personal context. So, like, say, if I ask ChatGPT, how do I lose weight? Um, ChatGPT is going to give me a very generic answer, like, oh, eat less, exercise more, drink more water, like sleep well, right? But it doesn't know my personal context. So without giving ChatGPT or like any other AI that you want to use a lot of very detailed information about you, the answer you will get, there's nothing wrong with that answer, but the answer is not going to be super helpful. Does that make sense? Um, in comparison, if I approach chat and I be very specific and give chat like my entire physical exam like results, like my height, weight, age, here's my cholesterol level, a lot of those information that I ask, hey, I want to lose 5 pounds in the next 3 months. What should I do? Here's my sort of daily routine. And on that kind of basis, ChatGPT or any other sort of good AI would give me such like much better response. So a very common mistake I would imagine people have is like they forget that AI know you but not that well. And also even if you are using the same account, there's memory loss between different threads. So every time you have a interaction with an AI chatbot, that is one thread, right? So sometimes the models are capable of exercising um, like the ability to summarize information from multiple threads and remember something about you. Sometimes it may or may not be able to do that. And that part is not fully under control, right? Depending on your membership and depending on the type of model that you're using. So if you wanted to ensure the quality of a specific prompt, you should try to make sure your prompt have all the basic elements of a good prompt and also provide as much context as possible. So in the world of AI interaction, there is a term called context engineering. So a lot of people they have heard prompt engineering, but they have never heard about context engineering. So engineering is actually a skill. You want to give AI enough context to make a specific task have the highest quality possible. But as you give those context, make sure you don't give any information that's like private that you should not provide to AI, especially if you're using a sort of commercial large language model. On top of that, you don't want to give too much information because sometimes when you give too much, that's distracting, right? Because if you upload a book to OpenAI and say, "Hey, help me analyze, what chapter 2 says," with all this information, the large language model may be easily distracted. So what you really want to make sure the model does is like have the right amount of information that allows you to have the highest quality of output. So that is one element. Another element to sort of unsuccessful prompting outcome is the value alignment. That can be a mismatch. So one gap would be the context. So the models are pre-trained and they're trained for general purpose. They may or may not give you the best fit or best suitable answer based on your individual case. So that's one potential issue. Another potential issue is value alignment or like your goal alignment. So what you're trying to do and what is statistically most possible sometimes may not fully align. And that gap is the quality issue of your prompting outcome, right? So if my goal is I wanted to find a school that can give me the best opportunity career-wise, but I also want to save money. And if I just describe my career goal, and I didn't mention the save money part, and AI will give me some suggestion, but that may not align with my situation. So that's the second kind of gap. And the last kind of gap is information restriction. So sometimes for AI to make the best decision, it needs to have the most updated information, most relevant information. So without access to those, the quality of the output can also be lowered. So those are the common issues that you can easily anticipate, but I'm sure there are many other reasons why people's prompts are not working very well.
I completely agree with that. Building on this, I'm curious, do you think prompt engineering follows a relatively common structure? For example, some people suggest frameworks like role, context, examples, and constraints. In your view, is this a generally applicable approach, or does it depend more on specific task and context?
Yeah, this is a very good structure. I think this structure is very generally valuable in most contexts. It's just like as I was saying a little bit earlier, there are a lot of situations where you wanna modify the model in the sense that sometimes you would emphasize the role, sometimes you would emphasize the task, sometimes you would emphasize the context. So it depends on so my answer to your question is like, yes, this is a very good structure for how to structure your prompt and what to put into your prompt. But that doesn't mean in every prompt you give, you would put equal emphasis on the 5 elements, right? So in some contexts, you may emphasize the role. In some contexts, you may emphasize the context. In some contexts, you may emphasize the example. And sometimes if your context already include example, you can skip the example part. Just keep in mind, it's not always the more the merrier, because everything you put into the model is potentially giving the model a signal. That's something to consider. So if you give too much information, that can in and of itself be a distraction, right? Because you are putting in a lot of things that's irrelevant. So when you are prompting for a specific task, you have to ask yourself, like, what are the best things I need for me to make the best decision to do this task? And just give that and nothing more. It's not always like good idea to have like super long prompt. It doesn't always do the best. Sometimes it's actually like giving the most necessary part. That's the best. But this general structure is a good start. Like it allows you to think about all the things. Like sometimes it doesn't matter if your role is this or that. You can skip that. But task is something you could never skip, right? Because that's your command. And context, in my opinion, is also very, very important. Whether or not you separate context from example depends on the task you are trying to run. In a lot of situations, the context is the example. And then the constraint is also quite good. So you eliminate things that you don't want. You can also give constraint in the examples that you give. Like, for example, here's what I want. For example, here's what I don't want, right? So as you are giving example, you can also set constraint. But so it's not like always you have to check, check your checklist. I have 5 things, yes, and this is a good prompt. Not necessarily. Depends on the things that you have in your hands.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, as you mentioned, we don't always need to include all the elements. Sometimes we just focus on role or other key parts. I think that's a great insight. And I feel like for many people, prompt engineering doesn't necessarily have to be very complex. When they're facing a task, they might wonder, do I really need to do prompt engineering or can I just chat with the AI naturally? So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends. First of all, AIs are getting better and better at understanding us. So, prompt engineering, when AI, the first generation of public-facing AI was released, prompt engineering is very, very important. As time goes by, mm, the newer AI models uh, many of those models have added an additional layer. It's like a translating prompting behind the curtain. So basically, you're typing something, and then the model would interpret your intention. So they do a little bit of intention interpretation, and they rewrite your prompt behind the curtain to try to understand you and give you a response. So the purpose of that is to allow more people to get better results, right? So in a way that lowers the burden of prompting for a lot of users, even when you are typing with like grammatic error or like you're missing words and like my teenage son, he typed with slang and AI somehow can still understand him. So those are the kind of situation where that's helpful. But without prompt engineering, it's very hard to ensure quality. If you're using AI for your personal leisure, like, oh, I'm just asking AI to help me pick a clothes, right? Or I'm just asking AI to help me decide on my travel like details. That's fine. Like you use whatever that makes you happy. But if you are using AI for more serious purpose, I'm using AI for professional purpose, or I'm using AI to produce something that actually is work related, you don't really want to leave that many things in the air, right? So I would say prompt engineering is not necessary for everyday use, but it should be like a very fundamental skill for people who are more serious about like using AI for professional work.
I think a lot of students are using AI for different kinds of tasks. For example, writing scripts, generating articles, creating PowerPoint presentations, or even producing images. So, when we are facing these different tasks, how should we adapt our prompt engineering strategies? Are there any specific techniques you would recommend?
Definitely. So when you're working with different model, like for example, when you are using AI to generate image, you're not using large language model. You're
Yeah,
using a large vision model, right? Language
yeah.
vision model sometimes. So when you are working with different model, you should work by the model's logic. So the prompting will be different. And also like for instance, if you're using DALL-E to generate image,
Uh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of specific techniques that you would use to guide the model's choice of color, type of theme, and so on and so forth. Versus if you're using, some other model to create video, again, there's specific terminologies you would use. The best way to learn AI is with AI.
Yeah.
This is like, hey, isn't that obvious? So for people who have the opportunity to do like a serious job retraining, you should take like a class that focusing on AI and really like learn systematically. I think that that can be like very powerful because if you just kind of like gas your way around, you could be missing out a lot of things. But if you have like a systematic knowledge about how large language model works and so on and so forth, that's actually much better. So that's the best approach. But for many people, that's not available. In many universities, there's no AI, like a real AI class. many programs don't have AI class, and many people are not at universities or anywhere they can actually learn. So if like a sort of more like formal type of learning is not possible, the best way to learn a specific tool is working with that AI model, because you can ask the stupidest question, they will never judge you, right? And they
Yeah.
know themselves very well. They will answer your questions. They'll answer your questions in a million different ways. They will give you tons of examples, and they never get tired. So that's my response to it. Like if you can learn AI through like a formal approach, that's great. If not, you learn AI through AI. So the best way to learn it is actually use something. Say I want to use Google AI Studio. I go to Google AI Studio. I open it up. I ask Google AI Studio, hey, what are the things I can do? Can you show me an example? Then I try it out and it didn't work. Okay, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Can you explain my sort of mistake to me? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? So you can actually use AI not only as a tool, but it can also be the teacher in and of itself. The same is also true for Claude, right? So if you never use Claude Code, people all talk about it. Sounds fancy. I want to use Claude Code. So how do I do it? I go to Claude Code. First, you have to pay, right? It's only
Yeah.
available to pro user. You pay, and you got the accounts, and you ask Claude, how do I use Claude Code? It give you like, you can also be a little bit more specific, like what's my knowledge level, how much knowledge I have about code, kind of other platform I've used. Then it will give you like a very tailored, and you can explain like, I wanted to learn to this level, like I want to be like professional, or I want to just kind of learn it for my personal sort of creativity. Design a tutorial for me, design some case example. They will do that. They can give you a syllabus in a second, provide lots and lots of teaching materials in like a split of a second, and you can learn it from the model itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sometimes we can just learn AI by like chat
AI,
or
yeah,
learn from AI. Yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
The best place to
So
learn AI
yeah,
is with AI and use it.
yeah,
I think a big sort of learning curve people nowadays have is like they're scared, or they're just like um a lot of people when they have a huge knowledge gap, they just kind of like gave up, and they would say, oh, I don't trust AI. They don't say I can't learn. Very few people actually say that. They would say, I don't trust AI. I don't trust AI's results. And they just brush it off, and they don't want to engage with any of the things related to it. Or they would just take the easiest piece of sort of available fruit, like say, oh, I know how to use ChatGPT. What else do I need to learn? I can do it. I can sort of, they would either completely distrust AI, or they would downplay it. Oh, this thing doesn't require learning. I think either way is very wrong, because there's actually a huge amount of things you can learn and develop and sort of get better and better. And I think the time we live in is like a fast changing time. So your skills and your many sort of future possibility depends on how well you can work with AI. And for young people in particular, I would encourage you guys to try as much as you can to work with AI in different modes. And the more different ways you can use AI, and the more different ways you can integrate AI into your workflow, you're actually better positioned. So either the people who think this doesn't require learning, I think they're wrong. It does require learning. And for people who think, oh, anything that has anything to do with AI, I just don't trust it. I don't know what to say about that.
yeah,
It's kind of like people who, in the early days of calculator, people who say, "Oh, I still want to hand calculate everything because I don't trust calculator." I mean, they can do whatever they want. They're just gonna be like washed away by history. Like the world will still move on with or without people who get in the way. But I think it's probably okay for people who are almost retired because it doesn't matter. But for people who are only at the beginning of their career, I think it's a huge mistake to think that way.
yeah, I agree with that. So do you think like let the AI to read the prompt is a good way? like to do
Not entirely,
yeah.
because AI
Okay.
AI is not you. So you should always, my belief is that AI is not me, so it doesn't really replace my role. So for everything I do with AI, right, I still want to be in the driver's seat, like prompting and things like that. I would suggest something, but I would not let AI to write the prompts and then guide the whole process. I think that's a little too much.
Thank you so much for all of the insights. So I have like last question. Yes, there are so many people they want to learn like about how to write the prompt engineering. So do you like have do you
Um,
some learning materials that you can recommend
so I
to the
have a few
audience?
books. The first book I would recommend is called Prompt Engineering for Generative AI.
Got it.
So it's by James Phoenix and Mike Taylor.
Yeah,
Another book, which is a little bit newer, it was just published about 5 months ago. It's called Mastering Claude AI.
got it.
Yeah, and that book is by Ryan Deacon. And the last book I would recommend is called Prompt Engineering for LLMs. That's also a very, very good book. It's John Berryman and Albert Ziegler.
Yeah, got it.
So if you read those three books, I think you're pretty covered for prompt.
Oh, that's cool. So do you think that we can practice like in our daily life?
Oh yeah.
Do you think yeah. So do you think there is a great like practice way for us to practice our ability of prompt engineering?
So the books I recommend, they have a lot of like examples for you to follow along, and also they have like exercises for you to do. You can start from there. Also, I think reading a book is a kind of like a systematic way to understand. Because sometimes people feel like I can just watch a YouTube video. But first of all, here's the credibility. Like, how do you know the YouTuber knows better than you?
Yeah.
Just because they have a lot of followers, what if the followers are dumb? So that's the first question. The second is like, within a 20 minutes video, whatever you can explain is very limited. You feel like you understood, but you may not have like lots of gaps that you are not aware that you don't really know. And that become like a problem. So I think like if you're serious about like prompt engineering, you should still systematically read or take a class. There's tons of class online, and if taking a class is not possible, reading those books or at least one of those books can be very helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of this sharing. Thank you.
好的，以上就是我们和杨爱梅教授的全部对话内容。不知道大家听完有没有什么新的收获呢？我自己印象最深的是教授说的一句话 ：“The best way to learn AI is with AI。”学 AI 最好的方式就是用 AI 来学。听起来像一个绕口令，但仔细想想，真的很有道理。AI 不会评判你，也不会嫌你问的问题太蠢，还能用100种不同的方式解释同一个问题，永远不会不耐烦。另外，教授也特别强调 ，prompt engineering 不是什么神秘的黑科技，但它确实是一个需要学习的技能。如果你只是日常随便用 AI， 那当然怎么方便怎么来。但如果你想把 AI 真正融入你的工作和学习，那就值得认真花时间去钻研。教授在采访中还推荐了3本书，我们也会整理好放在节目的配套文案里。 大家感兴趣的可以去看一看。如果说你觉得这期节目对你有帮助，欢迎分享给身边还在随缘用 AI 的朋友们。逻辑玫瑰，我们下期见。